Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. Our conversation this evening is part of the Nestlé Wellness Week. Throughout the week, we've been having conversations about nutrition, about fitness, and of course, our general wellness. My name is Terryanne Chebet. I will be moderating this conversation. Do tell us where you're joining us from, and if you have questions, comments, anything you'd like to ask my panelists this evening, please feel free to do so, and I'll be reading to find out exactly where you're joining us from and some of the questions that you'd like to ask. So today's conversation is about nutrition and children. We all know that well-nourished children are better able to grow, to learn, play, and of course participate more within their communities, and that having a healthy diet and focusing on nutrition are some of the simplest and most important ways to prevent the onset of diseases. A big shout out to Nestlé East Africa for making this conversation possible. Nestlé is committed to enhancing quality of life and contributing to healthier futures. I'd like to introduce my panelists today. Anna Wanjiru. Anna is a culinary nutrition expert and a wellness coach, as well as the founder of My Planted Kitchen. As you can see, we are adhering to the COVID-19 protocols. Each of us will only take off our masks when we're speaking. When Wanjiru begins to speak, I will wear my mask. All right, so we'll quickly head on to our first question for today. And of course, before we get into the question, just an introduction. For somebody who hasn't heard about My Planted Kitchen or about you, do tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi everybody, and thank you Terryanne for the introduction. As she has mentioned, I'm Anna Wanjiru. I founded My Planted Kitchen. My Planted Kitchen is basically a wellness space where we get to talk about good food, good nutrition, good lifestyle, and having fun with it. I'm also a mom of three, a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So a lot of my content also focuses on that motherhood journey and taking care of my family healthily. I'm big on Instagram and I guess also on Facebook. That's how you guys can find me.
All right. What informed the decision to set up My Planted Kitchen? And how long have you done it for? What's the journey been like?
So initially when people would hear My Planted Kitchen, they would think I'm a farmer. Yeah. Or I help people garden, or I'm a vegan. Yeah. So basically I started My Planted Kitchen in 2017. I had just completed my culinary nutrition studies, and I wanted to blog and share all the amazing plant-based goodness that I was making, because I would find, personally myself, I would try to eat vegetables, but I would struggle. Like, how do I make vegetables fun? Yeah. How do I get my kids to eat more vegetables? And how do I present it visually in a way that is appealing? So that, and coupled with the fact that that time I had gone through a weight loss journey. The first time I went through it, I lost, I think, 30 kilos within a year. Yes.
Whoa!
So I
mostly focusing on food.
Yes.
Food and fitness.
Yeah, the initial time I was focusing on food, not so much fitness, but then I wasn't even into the gym and working out. So yeah, what you put on the plate is so important, and my health incredibly improved. Even things like how fast my hair was growing changed, like tangible things that I could see and connect to the fact that I changed my lifestyle. Yeah.
Wow, that is so exciting, and of course we'll delve into almost everything that you've sort of mentioned as we go along, and I know that our audience as well will be interested in finding out, what can they do different, how can they restart the journey. Some people will get in for weight loss, some people for weight gain, others for maybe just to maintain where they are, some to introduce their children early, or try to introduce healthy eating if they haven't already. So as we start off, we say healthy meals, but what really is a healthy meal? What does it constitute? Apart from what we were taught in school, there's a protein, a vitamin and a carbohydrate to be balanced.
Yeah.
But what really is a healthy meal?
Okay. I think I would define a healthy meal as food that is, in a sense, alive. You know, food that is giving you keys to health. Oftentimes when you compare with the opposite, you're taking in dead calories, meaning that food is highly processed. There are probably no vitamins left in it, no antioxidants and minerals and all these amazing nutrients that your body needs. So when I talk about healthy food, it's basically food that is, you know, full of all the nutrients that your body needs, in the different categories of protein, carbohydrates, fiber. It's got lots of fiber. And the other thing that makes it healthy is you're enjoying it. Like, I think enjoyment is important. If you're sad and miserable eating that food, is it healthy for your mental mind? Probably not. And also, how you're enjoying it. Are you enjoying it in the company of family and friends, and is it also nourishing your soul? So I think that for me is a healthy plate.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
And we'll go into perhaps even some suggestions on you know, what would breakfast look like. I think sometimes, and I know my house is one of the culprits, breakfast in the morning, it's so hectic. So you're just going, so you're like, the first is cereal and milk, and sometimes we'll end up doing cereal and milk the whole week, like Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
And I know that hopefully you'll share with us some of the ways in which we can make that a little bit more fun, as well as to include all the nutrients that we need to put together.
Exactly.
So, for many parents and caregivers, the challenge is getting their kids to eat well. Sometimes it's the quantity they're eating, sometimes it's the type of food they're eating. Because, you know, when we talk about good food, and I know we had this conversation the other day about ngwashes, and all these whole foods, so to speak, most children, either we were not raised to like them, and we still struggle, you know, even as adults. So, you know, how do you get children to begin to enjoy this at an early age?
Okay. Obviously, I think at the onset, try and start introducing these things probably earlier than maybe how we were introduced. Don't wait until their teenagehood to start insisting that they eat sweet potatoes. They're not going to do it. So earlier. And then I think it's also important to include them in the process of shopping, the buying, the prepping, and allowing them to serve. You know, sometimes we think our children cannot make good decisions for themselves, so you're there serving them. Like, give them the opportunity to actually serve themselves that meal. Because it gives them, how do I say, it gives them the confidence that mommy trusts me to make a good decision about my own health. And then the other thing is, obviously, and this one I'm very passionate about because that's why I did culinary nutrition, is how do you make that meal super appealing to anybody who would say, I would never take any vegetables. And you do something with that vegetable, whether it's cauliflower or broccoli, that just, you know, it just blows their mind and they want to eat it. So cauliflower can be pizza, you know.
That's what I was actually going to ask you. I'm like, how do you make broccoli yummy?
Yeah. Let me give you examples. So one way we make broccoli really interesting is we make these broccoli balls, and what we do is we boil or steam the broccoli, and then you slightly mash it, and then you add in a bit of whole wheat flour, some egg, some, you know, salt and black pepper, and then you create really little balls, and then you fry them. You can either lightly fry them in good oil or you boil them, and that becomes such a nice little bite. You know, you can just dunk it into ketchup, and kids really enjoy that. And they don't question, like, you know, at that point they're not thinking, yuck, this is the broccoli that, of course, the very picky ones will see and start to pick. Another way we actually mask, and this one is such a good tip, is when we're having pasta, spaghetti, what is it called, meatball sauce, the meatball sauce. we mask a lot of veggies in that meatball sauce. So what we do is we fry the vegetables and add all the tomato and everything, then we blend it. Then once you've cooked your meatball, you can put the meatballs inside that sauce and then make your pasta or spaghetti on the side. And that sauce is so delicious, and kids have no clue.
So what are some of the vegetables you put into the sauce?
The sauce. We put in broccoli, cauliflower, courgette, red and yellow pepper, sometimes mushroom, but mushroom has such a strong aftertaste that they start to get picky, at least my children. So I avoid that, and I go the carrot, the broccoli way, sometimes cauliflower, sweet corn as well, because sweet corn is so yummy. And you know, that meal becomes my clear out fridge meal because no veggie is going to waste.
And it can be a whole meal on its own.
Yeah, it can be soup or whatever.
That's amazing. All right, so, and of course children develop their tastes very early. And I feel like, I mean, not to, I'm beginning to think I'm putting my home on the spot. But we just raise our kids on, mashed potatoes, butternut, milk, cereal, ugali, and soups. That's about it. So, how do you introduce variety early and still make that variety healthy? Like I wish I loved sweet potatoes, but I don't.
Okay, so one of the things I did with my kids is, first of all, I was not staying away from spices and herbs when they're whole, because they're so rich in their own nutrients. Like turmeric has got anti-inflammatory properties. Cinnamon is a natural sweetener. You've got all these. If you want to reduce sweetness, you can add in cinnamon, say in your oats or in your pancakes, and you end up using less sugar because it's got its own natural sweetness. So one of the things we did is we actually made sure we are spicing up our food, because I think one of the problems is we want to eat those healthy vegetables, which is great, but we're not adding in the spice and the flavor profile in it, So we got creative. Like in butternut, we add thyme. In oats, we add cinnamon, and all the amazing.
How soon do you introduce the spices to the children?
I started full on, like yes, I did, but mildly. So not chili. Chili obviously is too strong, even for adults, for some adults. So just the thyme, the basil, the dhania, all those natural spices, and I like getting whole spices and grinding them from scratch because they are more potent that way. The cardamoms, the turmerics, I mean, it's so amazing. When you start adding them in your vegetables and your fruits, it takes them to the next level. So that's one thing we did. And then just getting a bit more creative. You don't have to have sweet potato one way. One way we have sweet potato is we either make sweet potato muffins, and we use oats and maybe a little bit of peanut butter in there, and just make really amazing yummy muffins, or we would add them in the pancake batter. And have like sweet potato pancakes, and just getting creative that way. And sometimes for fries, instead of having potato fries, we would have sweet potato fries. I think it's just a matter of getting a bit more creative in the kitchen, and I think that's why moms, just starting to take over and take control, and even just share the recipe with the nanny. Just show her one time, that's enough. They get it and they start to implement.
Oh wow, I wish I was taking notes, but I'll definitely come and watch it again and take notes, because I think you're really sharing some amazing tips. Eunice Mulinge, she says, good job ladies. Thank you so much, Eunice, for watching. George Oraro, you say very informative. Thank you so much for watching, George. Natasha Wilkins, you say, I like the videos you're doing, looking forward to more of this. Thank you so much. We actually have two more, one which will happen tomorrow, same time, 5 to 6, and on Thursday as well we have another one on fitness. So please remember to join us and to share with the friends as well. Nicole says, looking forward to this session. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us this evening. All right, let's talk about attitudes that we present as adults when introducing children to a new food, because sometimes when the attitude is already with the parent, it's very hard for them to introduce something that is really great, really healthy to the kids. How do we first deal with it as parents, and then how do we, ensure that that attitude does not trickle down to the children?
Okay. I think the first thing is to make sure that you do a self-introspect, of why you doing this? Why do you want to eat a bit better? Why do you want to eat healthier? And also just being honest that we are not all gonna love all vegetables, right? And you'll find that one vegetable that gives you this, there's like 3 other varieties that could give you the same thing. That's the amazing thing of how God created all the plants. There's so much variety. So, and rightfully so, you'll find people who genuinely cannot eat something like avocado, right? But you'll find that you will get the same magnesium in something like banana or, another fruit, right? Or you love berries. So I think it's important to just know yourself and appreciate that there's so much more variety and you're willing to try. I think it's also important to be willing to try. And when it comes to children, I think it's important to be careful how we describe food. If you start using words like don't like, yuck, and they can hear, or they can see how you're interacting with that food, you're also picking and you're doing all these things. Kids do what they see. They don't do what they are told. So I think just to avoid negative talk with food, and to say, and to really give like genuine reasons or real explanation to them when they ask you, why mommy don't you eat apple, like just think through what you're going to tell them in a way that packages it, that it's not the problem with the fruit, it's just that mommy had a reaction or something happened. Yeah.
And for those who haven't begun the healthy eating journey very early on with the children, let's say you have teenagers, for instance, how do you start?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think so. First of all, try and start early, because I think it gets a bit more challenging, because they're used to a certain way of eating, and they have set preferences at that point. Because when you ask, and this is one thing I encourage parents, when a child says, I don't like something, don't get into an exchange, like eat, whatever, engage, ask, why don't you like this food? As young as they are, even 5-year-old, ask them, so why? And keep digging. You'll find either it's texture or color, or that it's touching. Kids are so funny. This food is touching this food I don't like. Or that, mostly texture, color, food is touching. So with that, try and give them options and leave the decision making to themselves and say, this vegetable is really important. And when they're younger, you can even try and create a very visual way of how to help your muscles grow, brain, whatever, and it's true. And give them options. So if you don't like carrot when it's cooked, can we try carrot raw? Would that be an option? If you don't like tomatoes cooked, can we try tomatoes raw? And there's nothing wrong, it's still the same tomato, and probably even more nutrition, because sometimes heat takes away some vitamins. So even with teenagers, try and engage them, try and hear what options they would like, because as they're their own minds, and they will tell you, what, I've never tried lettuce, I would love to try lettuce, can we have lettuce tomorrow? And you're like, yes, let me go and buy some vegetables.
Oh wow, okay. So the importance of meal times, being relaxed, organized, consistent. And I know that sometimes we have this conversation and parents are like, we're busy, we're working, or usually food would be served, everyone is in front of the TV, doing their own thing on the phone. Let's talk to us about the importance of meal times and how that then helps the parents also, foster this good, healthy eating habits.
Wow, mealtimes. Mealtimes can either be chaotic or really, really organized. I think the onus is to the parent to set the tone of how that mealtime will be. Ideally, they should be calm, they should be organized, everybody seated at the table, but that's not what you see in most families. So routines are amazing at helping with mealtimes. Just have a standard routine. Either it's kids shower, so they know after they shower it's mealtime, or it's mealtime then shower. So having a set routine so that there's not too much chaos and they really don't know what to expect, especially when they're a bit younger. The other thing is obviously gadgets, and it starts with us. Yeah. You find that you're on Instagram or whatever and you're not noticing just how much you yourself you're eating. It's like when you're driving and you're so lost in your thought, then you're like, how did I get here? Has that ever happened to you?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's
many times.
Exactly. So it's the same thing when you're on the gadget and you're eating. You'll be like, how did I finish this whole plate? You weren't present. So we want to build this healthy habit of conscious eating in our children to help them be present. So I sit there. Another great thing is allow them to serve themselves. I know this one, parents will struggle.
Wow.
They'll be like, I don't know if I can trust my kid to put enough. Imagine, just trust them. They are their own little minds and persons. You could either put the dishes there and the plates, and if it's too hot, get there and ask them, so is that enough? Let's put this, let's put that. And it's fantastic because it teaches them to listen to their own fullness and hunger cues, and they put in what they visually think they can finish, which they end up finishing. And if they don't want to have the same food, you can always offer a fruit. So in a sense, you're just playing around with, it's all good food.
From what age can they serve themselves? And I'm thinking of my little one who's about to turn 4. Can she serve herself at this point?
You probably need to help her. Okay. But what I think is you've given her the option to say, Mommy, that's enough for me. Because at that point, I think she can express herself and say, I want that much ugali, I want that much rice. Allowing her also to feed herself. I think at that age, it's to allow her to feed herself. Sometimes I find kids are being fed too long, especially in our African setting. Is to allow them to feed themselves. Let them be part and parcel of the whole process of feeding their own bodies, and appreciating that the decision lies with them.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So about the TV and video when eating, and I know that because sometimes it's easier for them to just eat when they're watching something.
Yeah.
But you say we shouldn't really do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us.
So obviously they get distracted, and you're eating distracted, and you find, especially in younger children, they end up overfeeding. And by the time you notice the child is full, the child is almost barfing. They're almost removing or vomiting because so many fullness cues were missed along the way. And also, I think it doesn't create that amazing culture of sitting down to eat together. We might as well be in our own corners with our gadgets and, just chowing down the food. So it's that thing of, it's creating a culture in the home. It's helping everyone be conscious eating. It's also, and I know this will sound a bit Western, but it's allowing you to be grateful for the food, to think about and even talking about the food, the journey the food took to get to us, appreciating the farmer who grew the broccoli. If it's yourself, appreciating yourself for growing that. So it brings that mindfulness and that gratitude of the food that's before us, which is why we say the grace,
Exactly. And how about cooking? At what stage should we, allow our children now to get into the kitchen, help us with the cooking, or even leave them to cook, if possible?
So obviously watching out for hazards and doing age-appropriate activities. I find in the younger age they can help with things like maybe kneading, the dough, obviously watching them that they're not eating raw unga. Either maybe you're making cookies, something fun and quite safe, and obviously when it's in the oven time, the adult is helping. And as they get older, try and help them get comfortable with maybe blunt knives for cutting, things like banana. As they're preparing a nice fruit snack, starting to help them beat the egg, making their own eggs. So this is around age 6, age 7. As they get older, give them more responsibilities. You're making the rice today, brown rice is better, and as they are making, they will not be whining about why are we eating brown rice as opposed to white rice. They get to be part of that process. And I think as early as possible, honestly, even in the toddler years, start getting them in the kitchen and helping and doing these things together, because I think they really bond you guys. And I'm yet to meet a child who did not love, being in the kitchen and playing around with dough.
Tell us about meal preparation. And I know that there's a lot that goes on around meal preparation, especially when people are trying to lose weight, but also as a family and planning, on having a healthy, let's say, menu for the whole week. You must plan in advance. Do you have some tips that you can share with parents on how they can approach meal preparation and how to make it simpler, because meal times can be a bit hectic. And just basically some tips that we can take home with us.
Okay. So the starting point could be 2. It could be recipes that you want to try, or that everybody has agreed to. So it could be, so if you're at a starting point of wanting to sort of revamp the food that your family is eating, you could maybe research, get 1 or 2, 3 new recipes for either one really nice one for breakfast, maybe an oat banana pancake or something like that, a soup recipe that you want to try. And there's so many really, really amazing cookbooks out there. Or it could be thinking about what's in season, which is a very smart way to do it, because you're eating what's cheaper, what's really available, and it's sweeter at that point. So with that in mind, obviously creating a shopping list, going to the market, buying it, involved as many people in the family as possible when doing this, and then coming and prepping. Then you can create one day of the week where a bit more of the prep is done, whether it's boiling the legumes, those ones are done, whether it's making sure that how you're storing, you store them properly. Try not to wash vegetables that are going into the fridge, because they get spoiled faster, like the danias, the skumas. Wash them when you're prepping them. So how you store them is also as important, because you're trying to minimize wastage. And healthy food is expensive. Let's not lie, it's expensive. So when you lose that packet of berries, you're like, oh my gosh, that is just 300 bob down the drain. So how you store them is so important. With berries, you can try and put something like serviettes underneath to soak up the moisture, and you'll find your berries can even go 2 weeks. You could even decide to store them in the freezer and use them for your smoothies. And kids do like smoothies, especially when they have all those colors. You've got the blueberries, the strawberries. When it's got that visual appeal, it's really, really nice. And then even when you're planning your plates and your meals, is to try and incorporate as much color within that plate as possible. So we are talking just different variety colors of vegetables. You can make a nice roast vegetable in the oven that you can add as a side, and that you can do a big batch that can take you 2 to 3 days. So it's thinking about 3-4 recipes within the week that will need that big shop, and then how you prep, how you store, and just having the buy-in of people in the house is important.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we've got a question. Is it health from Caroline? Is it healthy if you fry, roast ndoma and guache to make them more palatable for the kids?
You can definitely fry. There's absolutely nothing wrong with frying. I think the issue is what oil or fat are you using in the frying? Because if it's highly hydrogenated or oxidized, or it's trans fat, these ones have got connections with cholesterol issues, and there's a lot of research around that. So try and invest a little bit more in better oils. There's canola oil, there is coconut oil, there are variety out there. They're a bit more pricier, but they're worth it, even coconut oil, because it can handle high heat. And then you don't have to deep fry. What we do with potatoes is we cook them, like parboil, till it's like, I don't know if you can use the word al dente, it's still hard. And then now finish off with the frying. And sometimes we'd even finish off in the oven. Just get a bit of oil and then finish off the roasting in the oven. So it's still like fries, but just much, much healthier.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So somebody says the only thing my son loves is playing with the unga and being the chief taster. And then Natasha says, my kids have sensitive tummies. They struggle with rich foods, but I'm tired of food spiced with salt only. What advice would you have for her?
Sorry, let me confirm. Her kids are allergic to spices?
They have sensitive tummies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, this one gets stuck in my earring. I think it's important to do a process of elimination for her to find out specifically which spice and which herb are off limits. So
because it cannot be all of them.
It can't be all of them. Like hardly do you find somebody who's allergic to all food. It's usually one thing. It could be a common ingredient in most spice blends that the kids are allergic to. So the common ones are cumin, turmeric, black pepper, and I find actually a lot of people are allergic to black pepper. Yeah, and cumin. I found people who are completely allergic to cumin. So she can do like a slow process of elimination and see which ones that the kids complain, after she's given them that food with that spice. And even with the herbs, I think also to try and avoid the highly processed, like beef cubes or whatever. Just think through trying and get the most whole version of that spice. Yeah.
Okay. Oh wow. All right. Please, if you do have any question or comment, please feel free to leave it on the chat underneath the Facebook conversation. I know that some of you are watching on YouTube as well. I will be able to get those comments in just a moment. So we'll continue with Wanjiru. Some of the children, most children, have favorite meals, which usually revolve around chips,
yes,
chicken, and sausages. Is there a way we can still get children to enjoy these meals in a healthier way, or should we completely scrap them off and say once in a while on Sunday you can have? So how do we go about that?
I think it's a matter of striking the balance, because these kids will go to a party or somebody's house and they'll end up eating that, and so you can't say they will never have chips or sausage again in the future, but it's a matter of striking the balance. One way is to minimize, like you say, it's a treat on Sundays or on whichever day that they have, but the rest of the week, majority of the meals are home cooked, they are whole, they are healthy, and we've really tried to make them interesting and palatable as much as possible, and they kind of have no choice. They'll have to eat what mommy has made at home. And I think it's a good way, to think about balance, because even you as an adult, you want balance in your life. You don't want to be on either extremes. You don't want to be on the extreme of eating unhealthy, and then you don't want to be on this other extreme, eating too healthy that you don't enjoy anything, that life is not enjoyable. It's called orthorexia, where you're too absorbed in how many calories does this one have processed. You've lost touch with what's really just food. So it's creating that balance, and it's allowing the kids to know that yes, you can have that. It's a treat, whether it's a sweet or whatever. Yeah.
Let's talk about obesity in children, or being overweight. And after the conversation, or during the conversation on Saturday when we had both Shiv and Denya, one of the questions that came up was around, our African culture looking at children who are a little overweight as, that's a good mom, she's taking good care of, of her child. First of all, how do we know a child is overweight or obese? And then we can go into the other part of the question.
Okay. Well, it's not easy to tell whether a child is obese because they are growing. And obviously also there's genetics to play. The only way scientifically you can tell anyone is obese is if you do something called a BMI. And that's a calculation you do of the weight in relation to height. And when it comes to kids, it just doesn't end there. It's BMI for age, because you have to factor in age and sex. So this is a calculation that if you suspect your child is obese, I would highly, highly encourage you to see the pediatrician or the health practitioner to give you these statistics, for you to know. But there could be other telltale signs that a concerned parent could notice. It could be maybe the child is having issues with breathing, maybe they are always fatigued, they're having a hard time catching up with other kids. It could even be how they feel in their body, maybe you're seeing them being a bit conscious about themselves, get to talk to that child and also get to do something early, because statistics have shown children who have obesity they're highly likely to enter adulthood still obese. And once they get into adulthood, it gets a bit hard because there are other factors to think about. Maybe their hormones have been affected, and it becomes even harder. Maybe their metabolism has been affected. It even gets harder in adulthood to lose that weight. Yeah.
Now, how about the flip side? Children who are underweight, maybe they don't like to eat. My family, my mom has an interesting story. She says when I was a child, I was very tiny. Some of my siblings like to say I looked like a rat or a mouse when I was brought home from hospital. I think I was like 2.6 kilograms or something like that. Yeah. And she says people wanted to adopt me because they felt she's not, she's not taking good care of me. Yeah. And I did not like to. I was not a good feeder. So for parents who are in that space, what are some of the tips that you can share with them, especially for underweight kids, which is such a, it's a difficult place to be.
It is, and I can understand, having a child who just doesn't like food, and it happens a lot, right? I feel it's also a stage. A lot of us probably went through that, and we give, our moms sleepless nights. And when it started happening to us, so now we relate with our moms. I think play around what they like. I think that's like the easiest and the best tip I would say. Don't give up. Keep trying to introduce. Find out what they like, and keep just playing around what they like and the textures and understanding your child. Because again, the fussy eating is not just fussy eating. They woke up and decided to be fussy. It could be there's a texture. Maybe there's the distraction. Maybe there's a certain taste, smell. So trying to find and working with it and not giving up. But also speaking to a pediatrician is the most important thing you could do to make sure your child is not severely underweight, that they're growing properly. There are all those graphs that nurses and pediatricians would check to make sure that your child is growing well. And if you're not seeing any developmental issues, you'll find that a lot of doctors will tell you, they'll be okay,
Relax.
Just relax. Just don't give up.
One of my friends says, please don't force the child to eat. When they're hungry, they will eat.
That's true. I completely agree, because that is usually my stress on Sundays. The nanny is not there. And
Me too.
Exactly. Yeah. And these guys don't want to eat. Whatever I put on the table, they don't want to eat. And I used to stress so much until I realized, what? Let me allow them to come and tell me they are hungry. And when they start asking for random things like milk, you know, soda, you know, this is my cue.
Yeah.
You put it all out there and they eat.
Yeah.
They eat. So it's that thing I was saying of allowing them to be their own little decision makers at some point, obviously with a lot of guidance from you, but that responsibility, knowing that, oh, I can actually make a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So Natasha came back to us. She's the one who had mentioned that her children had sensitive tummies. So she says she typically uses black pepper, garlic, and ginger mixes, and turmeric, and the spice mix for pilau. Could you give her some sort of advice?
It's definitely one of those ingredients that's not sitting well with the kids. Start with the garlic. Yeah, I'd advise her, just do a process of elimination and even try and keep a food journal. You know, sometimes we don't remember. We're so, you know, in our minds that we don't remember these things. It's just important to write a little food journal, even just for a week or 2 weeks, and she can start to see the connection. This day I cooked this, the kids complained. So which ingredient there?
Oh, wow. Okay. So if you do have any questions, we're about to come to an end of our conversation, but I wouldn't want to lock anybody with a question. Please, if you do have any comments, I can see some loves and some thumbs up being posted on the Facebook group. Please remember to share this conversation with other moms, other dads out there who may benefit from this conversation. This live will stay on the page and you will be able to watch it and to share it as well. All right, so as we come to an end, what are some tips maybe that I've not asked, or you know, some tips or suggestions that you may have for parents that I have not asked?
Okay, cool. And this goes to how can we help our children build healthy habits, healthy eating habits. So the first thing is, it has to start with you. Be a good role model. Just be a good, you know, don't preach water and drink wine. If we say we are eating fruits, be the one, you know, also eating those fruits. If you consume a lot of soda, guess what will happen? Your children will want soda, you know. But if they see you trying to take smoothies, like my kids see me taking smoothies every day, and they're like, oh, smoothies are a mommy thing, you know. They're not yet there, I'll be honest. They will not take my green smoothie, but one day, I am certain they will take that green smoothie because they've been seeing me taking it every single day. So be a good role model, and it goes out, and it goes beyond just the food and the kitchen. You know, even let your kids see you exercising, let them see you taking walks, let them see you reading a book as opposed to watching, you know, a series. Like, just, it has to start with us, and it's a big responsibility, but hashtag adulting. I think the other thing is to talk about to your children about what being healthy and what healthy decision means. And this would be a very good conversation with a teen, you know, just engaging them, finding out what do you think being healthy is. You know, you'll be shocked, you know, just the things they'll tell you, and they know these things, and allowing them to just contribute to what is our family being healthy looking like. And they'll say, probably, you know what, I'd love to start jogging. You know, you're going to wake up and take her jogging, you know? Yeah. And I think the other thing is making sure your children are getting enough sleep. There's a lot of research that is linking lack of sleep to obesity and being overweight. Obviously, it has a lot to do with hormones and the stress hormones being high by the time you're waking up, because you know, we release cortisol even at night just to help us with some bodily function. So if it's still high, then it means you'll not be metabolizing fat properly even during the day. So just making sure your kids are getting enough sleep. I mean, I get surprised to hear of kids sleeping at 11 and at midnight. Even if it's holiday time, it does affect their health. And, you know, we all want to build healthy habits. So even adults, I'll say, you know, 7 to 9 hours is a sweet spot, you know, just getting enough sleep. So I think those are the tips I'd share.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you so much. Wanjathu is asking about Cerevita, which is more of a breakfast meal, or can you have it as a snack? We've got a team from Nestlé East Africa who will be able to directly respond to you on on the page. Well, we've come to the end of our conversation this evening. I want to thank each and every one of you who has made time to be with us. Remember, this conversation stays on the group. If you know any parent out there who, please share with them, because they will definitely benefit, from this conversation, because, the health of kids is important, nutrition for children, having a healthy diet, and we as parents must focus on nutrition, not only just for them, but for us as well. So my host has been Anna Wanjiru. Anna is a culinary nutrition expert and wellness coach, as well as the founder of My Planted Kitchen. My name is Terryanne Chebet. Thank you so much. Remember, tomorrow we do have another conversation from 5 to 6 p.m. with nutrition by Nthenya, who will be joining us. And then on Thursday, we have a conversation on fitness with Shiv Simani. So put that on your calendar and see you tomorrow evening. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.